All right, guys. Welcome to another edition of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. I'm your host, Brandon Choi, and we are having the third of our doubleheader, or say doubleheader, wow, our triple header of special edition episodes of Sdcc Peeps. As I've mentioned many times, Sdcc Peeps, the purpose behind it is to celebrate the terrific relationships and unique folks that you can meet over the course of your time at Comic-Con. I'm fortunate to call all these folks that have been in these special edition episodes friends. More importantly, I consider them over that time, because we've known each other for years. I consider them family. So let me introduce our guest for today. All right, give me one moment. Welcome, Nell Minow. How you doing, Nell? Long time no see.
That is right, but I definitely consider you family. Anybody who loves Comic-Con as much as I do is definitely family, and I always get a kick out of seeing you there. So thank you very much for having me on the show.
Absolutely, absolutely. And for those who are not familiar with Nell, as I said, all the folks that I have here in these special edition episodes are, quite impressive in what they do. I've had folks that have been fellow journalists. I've had folks that have been publicists, composers, comic book artists, what have you. In that same regard, I have Nell here, who is also a fellow journalist. She writes with RogerEbert.com. So, Nell, if you could speak to that and talk a little bit about what you do.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, I actually have been reviewing movies online since 1995. So just past this week, in fact, is the 25th anniversary of the first movie review I put online. And if you can think back 25 years ago, it was basically Fred Flintstone and me. There was nobody writing movie reviews on the web at that time. And so there was not one company, there was not one publication that was online. It was mostly people doing websites like This Is My Coffee Pot and This Is My Dog. So, but I decided I had written movie reviews in high school and college, so I decided to write movie reviews. And 5 years later, the internet had kind of grown up around me. Yahoo called me out of the blue. Yahoo didn't even exist when I started, and said, "Do you want to be our movie critic?" And I said, "Sure." So I did that for a while, and then I wrote for various other outlets, and now I'm in my dream job as an editor at RogerEbert.com, where a group of 10 critics personally picked by Roger are continuing his great work.
Outstanding. And as I said, for this show, we're going to be talking about Comic-Con, which we've been having these special edition episodes for the past 2 weeks. So last week, and it will be coming to a conclusion this week. The thing that's special about this week that we didn't necessarily have with our special edition guests last week is that we are now in the crux of Comic-Con, so to speak, of virtual Comic-Con, if you will. So with that being said, Nell, as someone who has gone to Comic-Con, like me, has gone to Comic-Con year after year after year, how has that transition been this year of doing this virtual edition versus what you really can't replace in the live edition, and making the commute out to the West Coast and being out there for about a week?
Yeah, nothing can replicate the intensity and I'm just going to say the ultimately analog experience of being at Comic-Con. I always, when I tell people about Comic-Con, I tell them about the unexpected things. You're going to go out there and see some great panels and stuff. But I was coming down the escalator, and coming up the escalator, right next to me was the entire cast of The Hobbit. So Kate Blanchett and Benedict Cumberbatch and Andy Serkis. And I was just beside myself as each of them went like 6 inches away from me. I couldn't believe it. And last year, I was with my husband, and we saw a man crossing the street about 50 yards away from us. And I said very quietly to my husband, look over there. And he said, "I don't know who that is." And I said, "Look at your badge." It was actually the guy from The Walking Dead who was on our badge.
Edge Lincoln. Okay.
Yes.
Very nice.
Yes.
Very nice.
And another thing that I always tell people is I was walking through the sales pavilion, which is where I ran into you one time, and I overheard somebody say, "What time is the Klingon wedding?" And I just am happy to live in a world where Klingon doesn't even have a word for love. Klingon weddings. I just am happy to live in that world.
Awesome. And with that being said, Nell, can you talking about the unique experience it is about going to Comic-Con in person? What was your I don't even think, in the time that we've known each other, we've even touched base about this, if I can recall, your first Comic-Con, and with that Comic-Con, your best memory from that first.
This is
it was
such a
very
hilarious,
overwhelming.
it's such a hilarious story. I always wanted to go to Comic-Con. I've been to other cons. I'm from
Yeah.
Chicago. Chicago's got a great con. I've been to the Baltimore con. But and Comic-Con just seemed like a dream to me. I'd always wanted to go. My husband has a fabulous comic collection, original comic art. We're both really into this stuff, and yet it just seemed like such a big distance. It seemed like such a big deal. So I was asked to give a speech in San Diego, and I said, if you will do it during Comic-Con and pay my way out, I'll come. So I came, I gave the speech. I'm wearing my lawyer outfit with my briefcase. And I was so eager to get to Comic-Con afterward, I didn't even change my clothes. So I'm sure everybody thought I was cosplaying. They just couldn't figure out who I was. But anyway, so I walked into Comic-Con with a briefcase and my suit. And I walked in, and the first thing somebody said to me was, "Would you like to have your picture taken lying on a mattress stuffed with corpses?" And I said, yes, I would. So I have a picture of me with my briefcase and my suit lying on a mattress stuffed with not real corpses, but corpses. So, with a beginning like that, I just said, I'm gone for good. We're coming back every year, and we have not missed a year since then. I've had so many wonderful, unexpected experiences. I've learned so much. And I think the one piece of advice I give to everybody about Comic-Con is there will come a time at Comic-Con when you don't get into the thing that you're trying to go to, no matter what you do. And what you want to do is go to whatever is next door, because I guarantee it will be equally interesting and surprising. And that has happened every time. It's been some of the best things I've ever seen. So yeah, I've learned so much. I've met wonderful people, and they're always just fabulous stories and things that you think about all year. Another thing I like about Comic-Con is you get to see cutting edge technology long before it is anywhere else. So long before there were 3D printers anywhere, there was one at Comic-Con, and you could get an action figure of Predator holding your personal severed head. So they did a 3D scan, a 360 scan of your head with the blood dripping down, and your glasses or your earrings or whatever it was.
Right.
There's Predator holding your head. That's just awesome.
So yeah, no, I definitely second you on that. Whenever someone asks that's a newbie to Comic-Con, similarly, I give that same advice. Make a plan B, make a plan C, and then in that same regard, I'll always tell them, be receptive, or I should say, be open to what could possibly happen. Don't be afraid to reach out prior to the show and see if there are other folks that are also attending like you, whether it's their first time as well, or if they're seasoned veterans, because who knows what can come out of it. I was telling on a prior episode of Sdcc Peeps is talking about, had I not reached out, and this was my first Comic-Con, had I not reached out to some of the groups that were Sdcc affiliated, and said, hey, this is my first con. This is my first time going to San Diego Comic-Con. Do you guys have any, advice about some events that I may enjoy, or do you have any information about it that I might be able to check out? And randomly, I had someone that I didn't know from anyone now messaged me on this group and said, well, I have, and this was 2009. Well, I have tickets for premiere for that Peter Jackson film, District 9. Would you be interested in going in that? I was like,
wow.
I was like, yeah, yeah. So lo and behold, just being able to be open and receptive. Had I not done that, I would have never had the opportunity to go to that premiere. I wouldn't have that story of that being one of the highlights of my first ComicCon. So
I have to tell
absolutely.
you, that's absolutely. I tell you, one of the funniest things that ever happened to me at Comic-Con. So this rule I have has worked 100% of the time. Go into the room next door; it'll be fine. Now I have to tell you, I don't like horror movies. I really hate horror movies. So you need to know that. So did not get into the room I wanted to go to. Walked into the room next door, and it's not very many people. They're all men. They're all a lot younger than I am. And there's 3 guys on the panel. Don't recognize any of them. One of them's got a hat. And it turns out it was the introduction of the new streaming service Shudder, which is all horror movies. I know.
Love Shudder.
Okay, so it's all horror movies. So I'm like, and as you know, because of the traffic patterns, you can't go out the way you came in.
Right. So you had
on behalf of my gender, I am not going to be this gray-haired lady who walks across all these young men and is too chicken to watch this sizzle reel that they're going to show from Shudder. So I'm an adult. I've given birth to children. I think I can handle it. So basically, I spent my entire life avoiding this exact moment, which are highlights from all these horror movies.
Jeez. No, go ahead.
So they show the sizzle reel, and of course, there's nothing to it because there's no suspense. There's not, there's no, everybody loved it. Everybody's applauding. They recognize everything, but it was not scary at all. Not even a little bit scary, which is fine. Then the guy takes his hat off, and it's Elijah Wood. So, because he's one of the sponsors of Shudder. So I'm in a room with Elijah Wood and a bunch of young men and a bunch of horror movies. And when that was over, I just casually walked out the other way. And I was like, I did it.
But yeah, I was like I said, just like a lot of unexpected firsts like that. I think that was the same year that I know you say you don't really care for horror movies, but viewers out there will appreciate. It was a anthology film that was shown there that year that I went, and it was actually shown at night in Hall H. It was Trick or Treat, the anthology horror film Trick or Treat, the first one. So that was also a memorable experience. But be that as it may, with all of these memories of the live edition of Comic-Con, with this virtual edition, outside of it being, in some respects pre-recorded, in other respects, there are some live components. They have done some things that are still similar to what we would experience had we gone to the show, in terms of the routine of them putting out the schedule a couple weeks before like they normally would. Have you put together my schedule, so to speak, of
course,
you're checking out? And if so, I was going to say, if so, what did you check out today?
So what I've done today, one of the things I really love at Comic-Con is I love the below the line people. So the production designers, the costume designers, the storyboard artists, the location scouts, because they tell fascinating behind the scenes stories. So that's kind of what I did today. I went to 2 panels, or I watched 2 panels. I didn't go to, but I watched 2 panels. One was of married couples who work together as teams, 2 stunt people and editors. They had fascinating stories. The 2 editors worked on that Netflix series Cheer that's so popular.
Okay.
And it was fascinating to hear them talk about it. And then another behind the scenes one, which had some composers. It had a little bit of everything. And again, some fantastic behind the scenes stories, some great insights about how all the pieces come together and what happens first and, who decides what. And then I went to the panel on his Dark Materials, the Golden Compass series for season 2. They showed the trailer for season 2, which was great. And they made a big announcement, which is not only is Andrew Scott joining, one of my absolute favorites. I love Andrew Scott ever since he was Moriarty in the Sherlock Holmes series. But the voice of his Damon, in the series, he announced, is none other than Phoebe Waller-Bridge, his co-star from Fleabag. So it was very exciting to hear that. And they did have a live component. They had a Twitter Q&A afterward.
Oh, nice. I'm trying to think, what did I go? I think I might have gone to one of the panels that you attended. Was one of them moderated by actress Danielle Harris?
Yeah.
Yep. I was at that. I did check out that one.
Let me say something about that. if we went to that panel, that was really fun, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Really
definitely
enjoyed the
was.
composers and yeah. So if we went to that panel, probably there would have been maybe 100 people in one of the rooms on the second floor. I looked to see how many people were watching it with us. Did you look? There's more than 3,000 people.
Yeah, yeah. And that's an interesting point because in terms of the trend, it's really it'll be very interesting looking back on this experiment, if you will, with this virtual edition of what, because I'm sure it will happen, what components Comic-Con will keep based
Yeah,
on what they'll
exactly.
notice with the viewership.
That's just what I said to
Because
my husband, is that there's no reason in the world for them not to open some of these things up. Did you see that you can download a badge so you can sit there in your house with a badge?
Well, I'll take it a step further. I don't know if you've been looking on social media, but there are, because I'm a part of a couple of fan-related Sdcc groups on social media, and a lot of folks, because they want to still live the the lifestyle of being an attendee, they have, whether it's their apartments or their homes, they have actually created Hall H lines, and they've actually put up Hall H signs and like slept in sleeping bags and like taking video of them sleeping in sleeping bags and then commenting on, oh, it's almost time for us to go into this panel. Like, I'm like, wow, that's that is amazing.
That's pretty hardcore.
Super hardcore. But I love it though. Just the enthusiasm of still trying to, relive that what they would
That would
experience
not be the part
otherwise.
of the ComicCon experience that I would want to replicate, but
Right.
I'm pretty happy. I thought it was very funny. Comic-Con made a couple of little videos that I thought were great. One was, they said, this year at Comic-Con, no lines, comfy chairs, free parking. And so I thought that was, making the best of it. But they also had a very sweet one with the mayor of San Diego and the state representative from San Diego welcoming everybody and saying, we miss you. We really can't wait to have you back. We love Comic-Con, which I thought was very, very nice. And
San Diego, the convention center, they had a video that I saw.
Yeah,
It was really good.
They had one with the staff of Comic-Con, the volunteers and the other people saying things like, don't crowd the escalator and all the stuff that they normally say. And I just thought that was very, very sweet. There is something I think people don't understand about Comic-Con is how sweet it is, because in the regular world, you might look at my t-shirt. I'm wearing a Roger Ebert Film Festival t-shirt, right? You got your Comic-Con t-shirt, and they would make a judgment about you, and maybe it wouldn't be good or whatever. It's the most judgment-free place. People are judgy about some of the content, but in terms of, like, I could say to you, I'm into Battlestar Galactica, and you could say, well, I'm into Star Wars, and we go, God, dude, that's really great. Nobody says, what? You're into that? And I remember seeing this great big guy with a lot of piercings and tattoos, and he was really into Little Lulu, and everybody's like, dude, good for you. That's great.
Yeah, definitely. And I was going to say, to speak to that further, to speak to that enthusiasm I've had, because for better or for worse, and I've commented on this before, I have acted as a tour guide for a lot of friends back home that make the choice to come to Comic-Con for their first go around. They may come back, they may not come back, but I try to make it as fun as possible and introduce them to all those various things of not only what the show has to offer, but also what San Diego has to offer. And I won't forget, I did have a relative who came along in 2015, and because of their experience of going in 2015 and being in their first year, they were able to volunteer and attend the show. And they were able to check out some of the panels and hang out with me in Hall H for some of those panels. And one of the major ones that they really wanted to see that they got into, mind you, again, all of this happening within their first year, they were able to get into that Force Awakens panel that happened in 2015.
Wow.
And so after doing that Force Awakens panel, you remember at the end of it, they had that, special event afterwards, the music event with the composition and all that.
Yeah.
And they still gush about that to this day, this year, so much so that they plan to retire there. They plan to relocate from the East Coast and go to San Diego just because of their experience at Comic-Con and being out there, for that amount of time.
I've thought, believe me, I've thought about it too. Then I wouldn't have to worry about a hotel.
There you go, right?
I was just remembering where you and I were last year at that Pennyworth reception.
Right.
Wasn't that amazing? Where they recreated the entire set, and they had the Go-Go Girls dancing. I mean, it's incredible how elaborate some of that stuff.
Activations are.
Yeah,
definitely. So with all of that being said, talking about all these amazing memories, what would you say out of all of these years that you've attended Comic-Con, and this is going to be tricky, everyone has a different answer, what has been the best Comic-Con memory, or maybe it's a couple of them, and maybe it's plural memories?
Well, we all have our favorite movie stars, and I've had a chance to be in small press events with some of my absolute favorites, but Samuel L. Jackson was so great. You know how people rush up and they put their phone down in front of him so that they can record. Well, somebody didn't turn off their phone, so it rang, and Samuel L. Jackson answered the phone of this guy who had left his phone on the table. He said, "This is Sam Jackson. Who are you calling, and why are you interrupting my press conference?" So that was pretty good. And for me, I just have to say, Harrison Ford will always be Han Solo to me. He will always be one of my absolute favorite movie stars. And I was in a press conference with him, and that was amazing. But I was at another press conference, and I got a text, and it said, "If you can leave in 15 minutes from now at the room next door, the entire cast of Firefly is going to be assembled." Yeah. So that was pretty special too. So I think those are the most special moments.
Awesome. Yeah, I was just commenting in other, just brainstorming about all the things that have happened at each year, and it's amazing to think how long I have been going, and in that time that I can still pinpoint certain things that have happened, like major things that have happened at each show. I commented on District 9, the Secret Avengers panel where they all assembled, going to Captain America, the First Avenger, that screening, how crazy that screening was, going to Fright Night. It might not, even though I love the original, what they did for the remake, while it might, I still hold the original in a higher regard than the remake. What they did for the party and the event that they had for that was pretty awesome.
I was at the press event for that, which was amazing.
Because I still have it. They gave away like 3D glasses that had like coffins or something.
Bennett. Yeah, that was awesome. That press event was one of the all-time best.
Or even Cowboys and Aliens, like when they had that major event where they were giving out gold bricks and how creative they were in that whole premiere. So all of that being said, I'm going to cap it off there. Nell, thank you so much for coming on to this special edition episode of Movers and Shakers Unlimited, for the edition that I have coined as Sdcc Peeps. Before I let you go, can you tell folks where they can find you?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be on with you and to see you, and next best thing to being with you at Comic-Con. People can find me on Twitter at Movie Mom, or on my website, moviemom.com, or at rogerebert.com.
All right, cool. There you guys have it. Again, I'm your host, Brandon Choi, host and co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. Of course, you can find us here on Facebook, which you're watching now, but you can also find us on Twitter at Move and Shake UNLTD. You can find us also on Instagram at Movers Shakers Unlimited. You can find me, Brandon Choi ENT, on Twitter and Instagram at Brandon Choi _ENT. Thanks so much for watching this episode. We have a couple of more coming around with these special edition episodes, as well as some minutes, if you're keeping track on Twitter and Instagram, minutes of things that are happening for Comic-Con at home. So be on the lookout for that. Otherwise, as I said, thanks so much for watching. Be safe out there. See you soon. Bye.